Joseph, what's up?
Look, I am so excited to be on this podcast today. I'm ready to get into it. I think we got some good questions lined up.
Yo, so first question, the most important question ever. How did we meet?
I was thinking on that, like, damn, how did we meet? But I think it was at the AIA conference. I think it was at the AIA conference. I know it was DC. I know it was
It
DC.
wasn't at the DCAIA conference, was it?
Yeah, I think it was at the DC conference. And I this tells you just how random conferences are. I just remember us walking around trying to find food, and it was late, and it was me, you, it was Kia, and it was Devin.
That sounds about right. Because I met you through Devin. I know that was for sure. Because
And
I
I
ain't
feel like I met Devin at that conference.
okay. All right. I'll take
What?
that.
Hold on. What did you think? You thought it was something different?
I remember Devin introducing me to you. So I thought that Devin knew you.
No, I met y'all like essentially on the same day.
Okay. So it was there. Because that's when I met Devin. Did you hear the Devin and Melissa story?
Mm-mm.
So Devin was a we graduate,
I remember
uh,
her being like fresh out of school. But I mean, at that point,
baby breath, fresh out of
like
school.
I was kind of fresh out of school too. Like I remember being like real young as well.
And so she randomly hit me up on LinkedIn
Okay.
and she had read an article that I did and she just wrote me a manifesto and she was just like, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. Like, can't she was just and I was like, girl, why don't you come to DC convention? And I had paid for her trip, her train ticket and everything. I picked her up. She stayed by me. Mind you, I never met this chick. This is
That's
strictly like a
that's
cold, like
that's dope. That's dope.
and I was like, please don't rob me. Please don't steal my shit.
Yeah. No, but I mean that's dope though, right? And I feel like in the architecture community, especially as Black and brown architects, we have to have a level of investment in increasing the community and representation and all of those things. So, some of that is like organic, right? Somebody hits you up on LinkedIn and you're like, hey, how about you stay the night with me and we go to this conference together? And now you got a genuine, bond and relationship within the profession.
Yeah, those were the
But
days.
also that like don't invite strangers to stay with you anymore. That's we don't want you on a Netflix series like that.
I'm saying, I
You're
mean, Risa Tita part three.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Don't do that. Could have been on a Zoom call, but hey, you said, hey, why don't you come to the city and stay with me? So, but it turned out well. It all turned out well.
yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna fast forward through your life a little bit. Because
Okay,
right now you have your own architecture firm
I
called
do.
Culture.
Yep.
And, it's a rarity that Black firms exist nowadays. Like I
Mhm,
mentioned sometime in life about Moody Nolan, I've interviewed a couple of those folks,
mhm.
including Jonathan, and they are the top. This is what you aspire to be. What type of observations have you made regarding like the challenges and successes of these firms and in comparison to yours?
Mhm, mhm. I think I agree with you that Moody Nolan is a firm to aspire to. They're large and they're working on large and prominent projects all over the world. And they have a very diverse and talented staff. But I think that if you're starting a firm today, you can't try to mimic what anyone else is doing or mimic what Moody Nolan is doing. So Moody Nolan started in 1982. I couldn't imagine trying to start an architecture firm before the advent of the internet, right? So like their whole like ethos and origin story, you can't try to replicate it. You got to do something that's new and authentic to you. For me, I always knew I wanted to be an architect. like always known to be an architect since a kid. As a kid, most kids like coloring books. For me, when my parents go to the grocery store, there's always like these property listed magazines in the vestibule. And I would have my parents like grab the property listing magazines. I'm talking about a young kid. I'm talking about like 4, 5, 6 years old. And I'll come home and redraw all of the houses in the property listing magazines. And I'll tell my parents, hey, I'm gonna turn this house into a library. I'm gonna turn this house into an office. And they probably thought that was like the weirdest thing ever, right? But now like it all makes sense. And like literally my mom and dad are so proud. But they have like all of the like clay figurines and school art projects and houses all over the house. And it's like, hey, it tells an authentic story. Like Joe always wanted to be an architect. And for me, I always knew I wanted to have my own practice. When I went to undergrad, I studied architecture, but I got a minor in business. After that, when I got my first job, I worked at a firm for about 7.5 years. And like while I was there, I was constantly asking, hey, I want to be in these business development meetings. I want to, write proposals. I want to be involved in a strategy. And they were like, hey, kid, like, go sit down somewhere. Like, you don't know what you're doing. And I was like, nah, like I really think I could help with this. And it got to the point where I realized that I was really going to have to invest in, understanding the business architecture. I went back to business school. I'll say that really, really helped me in starting my own practice. But in that, I've continuously gone through, workshops and incubators and the whole nine. And I think the struggles that Black architecture firms have when they first get started is very similar to all Black businesses. In general, most Black businesses are over mentored and underfunded. So, there are often going to be people that are at high levels of success that'll say, hey, I'll get lunch with you. Hey, I'll get advice. Hey, I'll sit down with you. Hey, I'll review this. Like, and that's great and all, but sometimes you need the runway of cash in order to stay afloat while you figure it out. You know, I don't think there are a lot of Black businesses in general fold before we have opportunity to figure it out. When it comes to businesses founded by white founders, they often have a runway to like go through the stumbling blocks and figure out what does work, what doesn't work, how to pivot, how to niche down, how to remarket themselves. Often us, we have very limited financial resources, so we're barely making it. Starting out the gate. We can't go to mom and dad and say, "Hey, I need $100,000 loan." We can't start our business out of our parents' house. Like we're really out here trying to make it on a shoestring budget. So for us, I think the ingenuity and ambition and talent and skill and gifts that we have are great and all, but at the end of the day, it comes down to having the finances to figure it out. Some of that comes down to having great banking relationships. I'm a big advocate for great banking relationships and banking Black as well, but also, looking for grants, like looking for funding opportunities because, there'll be times where there's feast and you have all the projects and you have all the big projects. There may be some famine times, right, where you need to be able to stay afloat until you figure out your next move. But, the cash is the lifeblood of the business.
Is there a difference in your studying the business side, just business in general,
Mhm.
with the practice of an architecture business?
So, the one thing that I've done is between going to business school, so I got my MBA at Emory, but also going through quite a few incubator programs, I had this perception that architecture was so different than every other business. Architecture is pretty much very similar to service-based industries. I feel like those programs and that degree forced me to kind of step back from architecture specifically to really understand like just the overall idea of business and like foundational aspects that are critical to like any kind of business, whether you're starting an architecture firm or a dry cleaners. Like some of these foundational things apply across the board.
In your working for other architecture firms in the past, did you notice, "I'm not gonna do this at my firm. I'm not gonna do that at my
Yeah,
firm." What was
yeah,
those things
yeah,
that you like,
yeah.
"I'm not gonna do"?
So what I'll say with that is, I've been blessed to work at a big cross section of firms and firm types. So, I started off at a firm that at the time was around 30-ish. During business school, I worked at a firm where, oh, and I would say at that firm, we were working on large, prominent projects. So we worked on a lot of healthcare, we worked on a lot of government projects, had the opportunity to work on like office building for NASA, schools, crime labs, just all types of cool things. From there, while I was in business school, I worked for a firm that had two employees. So very different dynamics. So went from super silo, you do this very specific role to, hey, you do everything and you take out the trash and you make sure the bathroom's clean and I need you to go drop off, this mail, right? And then post B school, I went to Gensler, which, phenomenal opportunity working at tech and startup studio to work with large and prominent, leaders in the tech industry. And in that, you observe a lot of different things at firms and like different scales. For me, what I realized that, especially at a larger firm, you're very, well, I'll say at all the firms, one commonality was the importance of culture. I really will say that. So I've worked on projects where it's a dope client, easy timeline, they got a big budget, project is set up for success from at the very beginning, and the end result was pretty lackluster. And it was because there was like a poor studio culture, you know, the design team didn't get along well. There wasn't a high level of collaboration. I've also worked on projects with a difficult client, aggressive timeline, no money, kind of unglamorous project. And project turned out great because there was like this high level of like, camaraderie and working together and collaboration. I was like, hey, like culture is going to be the foundation of whatever I start, going forward. So you know, when I, was first, ideating on what my firm would be, there was like so many different names. I want to say like the first thing was like, well, okay. The first thing was like all things creative. And I don't even know like what was I gonna do with that? Like
What does
what
A
was
have to do with that? Right.
it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. And then it was color, but I had a little like seasoning in how I was spelling color, and I was like, I don't know about that. But I knew like the one constant in like this whole concept of what I was thinking was like the culture. And I was like, no, that's it. That's it. So, I could have started the firm with, my last name and put, Cole and partners. But I know like the big picture, I wanted this idea of culture to kind of permeate through everything. And I didn't want it to only just be about Joseph. So that as we grow the team and as the team members show up, they represent culture. They don't necessarily represent, Joseph. They're not, people aren't asking where Joseph is. They're saying, hey, culture's here. The project's ready to get started. Um, so culture was like paramount for me. Also, I realized that a lot of firms silo the roles and responsibilities. So, hey, you do this very specific thing. So in the event that Joseph or Mel quits, we can easily replace them with someone that can do that very specific skill set. For me, I'm starting a new practice. So I started in 2019, and our secret sauce is we embrace like the full creative, right? So if there are things that you are into that are outside of architecture proper, we try to figure out how to incorporate that within our secret sauce and like within the process of design. So you know for example, we have a project architect on our team, Brandon. He's really into podcasting. So I say, okay, let's leverage that into, our marketing. Also, he has a platform called I'm Studio where he teaches designers how to use the latest and greatest like tech and software, right? So for me, it's like, hey, anytime we get a new designer and someone new on board, I want Brandon to lead the professional development and onboarding them and teaching them how to run, software and technology. We also have, a young designer on board and she was a double major in architecture and interior design. Every firm she was looking at wanted her to do like one or the other. I said, hey, if you're really passionate about both, let's figure out how to make both work. I think when you are intentional about embracing the full creative, you get a different level of buy-in and investment, and overall, like the overall design comes out better because I think people ultimately need to feel seen and valued.
I think that's like an amazing thing that you are doing is that you're not just the only star in
Mm.
your firm. Like you bring on other superstars as well that has different talents and different things that they could bring to the table. When you first started out back in 2019, did you have any ideas or goals that have changed in 2024?
Okay, so I'll say what culture looked like in 2019 versus now is very very different. So 2019, I was working for a firm. I was working as a director of operations for a firm. So I just moved back home from New York, and we were about like a year in at the firm, and I just I knew it wasn't going well. You know, I didn't feel fully valued. I didn't feel like I was using my skill set and knowledge to the fullest. And I didn't feel supported within the firm. And I literally came home after a disagreement in the office and was like, this ain't it. Like, I can't do this long term. And like, literally that Sunday, thinking about it all weekend, I just started the LLC paperwork. That was on a Sunday. And that following Monday, got a call from a church I used to attend in a city I used to live in. And they said, hey, we got a project for you. We want to work with you. And I said, hey, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. So our very first project was in Chattanooga, which is like between Nashville and Atlanta. So say like 2 hours away. And I worked with a friend from undergrad in Brooklyn, and I worked with my former roommate in Chicago. So from the very beginning, embedded within culture was this whole idea of like I had this whole concept like farm in the cloud, where as long as you had access to Wi-Fi and some type of device, like we can make it shake. And say 6 months later, the firm I worked for, office got hit by a tornado. And then a couple weeks later, we realized, hey, like COVID is like a real thing. We have to like go remote. And then they had layoffs. It was like a whirlwind that month. And, I was like, man, what I'm gonna do? And ended up, being intentional about pursuing my dream of doing culture full time. So, during like 2020, 2021, we were able to really hit the ground running with design because like we had already had the whole like work remote and farm in the cloud thing kind of figure out. It was kind of embedded in our DNA. And a lot of things weren't being built. So while they were being, designed, we were getting through design and then kind of sitting on the shelf until outside opened back up. When outside opened back up, I realized like, hey, I got to be in two different places at the same time. They're on opposite ends of town. Like, how am I going to make this work? Like, Alicia in Brooklyn can't get to this meeting, and John Michael in Chicago can't help me out either. Like, I gotta figure this out. So there, from there, we're transitioning to just fully in person here in Nashville. So, Brenda and Brandon, they're on the team now. And in that, it's been great having the team on board. I've realized that, there's this level of like building an airplane while you fly it. And since we're all in the studio together, a lot of these things are like impromptu of bouncing ideas off of each other and figuring out how we can improve processes and outlooks and designs and outcomes. Like it's just been a heaven sent to grow our team in person.
You know, I frequently, you know, Google look up,
Mhm,
like when I peruse on like social media, especially firms and what they're doing. And
mhm,
I am so impressed about your marketing approach with culture. Like you are like on YouTube, you're on, and I think Brandon has a lot to do with that too.
mhm,
You're on podcasts, you are out there. Not to mention what I love about your website is, and I'm gonna pull it up real quick. What I love about it is your mission,
mhm.
right? Like providing you with the design and expertise you need to make your project successful. Was it that one? It was something else you said that I was like, wow, like this is was it your philosophy? Shoot, I thought I'd put that note. But
Uh,
anyway, let's
I'll
let's this
be
is
saying a lot. I'll be saying a lot.
but it was like it's just your and I'm, I'm gonna share my screen. We can all look at this together. I just love the clarity, strategy, coordination. Like, why do you stand? Like, I just love the layout, love the boldness, just like how we work. Like, it's basic so
Mhm,
that the average person can understand what services that you provide. It's not
mhm.
just we serve our client, here's our pretty pictures. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
really you really break it down. And I was like, I haven't seen this before. Not to say that it doesn't exist with other people,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
this is like the first time I ever seen an architecture firm just lay it out like this. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe one, there's an interior designer that she also does, but I'm talking about architecture firms. But I mean, I just love everything about it. Like,
I
just
appreciate it. I
just
appreciate it.
clicking
So,
away, careers, cute, frequently
easy.
asked questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I
So,
just
that was intentional. For me, I think we brought up the whole, business background. So when I went to business school, I initially went to study real estate. So there's a synergy between real estate and real estate development and architecture. I was like, hey, this makes sense. I got there and I realized this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to study everything unrelated to design. So when I left Emory, my concentration was in entrepreneurship, marketing, uh, and then all things related to tech startup and incubator culture. So, I was heavy on the marketing classes, which I actually found like, that's something like I'm really into. When it comes to, the approach and everything on the website, one thing I did realize is, kind of doing like the competitive analysis. A lot of architectural websites are set up to be uh, online portfolios for firms. So you go there and you're impressed with the great work, but for a client, they don't know how that that work is realized. They don't know there's not a call to action. They don't know what to do after they look at the website. For me, when I first started culture, here's the secret sauce we're gonna put out on the podcast. When I first started, my whole secret, like my secret sauce was we do great design. I come from a background where since I had that background for studying tech and startup culture at Emory and in Asia, when I came back, I got a job in Gensler's Tech and Startup Studio. So I'm working on projects for the Microsofts, the IBMs, the Googles, like anything cool and eclectic. That's what I'm working on. So I thought that was going to be my value add. I thought when I first started culture, I was going to market, hey, we do great design. What I found is clients automatically assume that. Like nobody hires an architect or interior designer to design an ugly space, right? Like great design is like borderline a commodity. Like if I'm coming to you, like they're automatically assuming that's what they're gonna get. So, I had to like pivot and say, okay, this is a pretty bland differentiator. Everybody has it. It's watered down. Let me figure out something else. So kind of tying back to the having the capital and having the runway to figure things out. One thing I did notice, I started doing, interviews with people that I eventually wanted to work with, but also I was very meticulous in how I track the dialogue during consultations. And like one of the big things I started finding out was like people were saying like, "Hey, I need this project done, but like I don't know how to start. Like I don't even know where to start. I don't know whether I need to get a contractor, give them the bills to measure, to go get permits. Like I don't even get the process. So for me, it was like, light bulb went off. Like, hey, I gotta like demystify this process for people who, one, don't understand how to start the process, but two, give them a level of confidence so they feel okay with engaging with an architect at the very beginning. Because some people may feel like I don't know. I don't need an architect for this project, or I don't know when to engage with the architect. So we were very intentional about kind of like breaking down those steps on our website. So pushing the client forward and pushing the projects backward when it came to our site.
And, in specifically with Black firms, I've noticed that, and I think that's where my comment comes, is
Mhm,
that there's a lot of secret Black firms out there.
mhm,
The fact that we don't know that they exist because they're
mhm,
so used to having like a certain clientele and they have repeat clients and
mhm,
even broader, right? Like
mhm.
just the small firms in general, like they have a set clientele and their website is so bland and then they wonder why more people aren't approaching them. Did you ever notice that yourself or aware of that?
I mean, I don't think we got it figured out. I think we're still figuring it out. It's part of that having a runway and opportunity figured out. I do think, you know, entrepreneurship is isolated and lonely for a lot of us. So you can get involved in the weeds and be so, invested in projects that you don't have a opportunity to work on the business because you're working in the business. So I do think that that's some of the reasoning behind, you know, websites maybe being light or
Mm.
social media necessarily like not being light, I mean, or not having a lot of content. So I don't necessarily fault them on that. Another thing is you know whether you push your clients forward or push your projects forward, actually having the access to showing your website, like having the opportunity to show the renderings or the built buildings and everything. So, and in our industry, it takes a while. It takes a while for these projects. So, whereas if you're in another industry, you may complete a project in a couple months. It might take a couple years for us to complete a project, and it's like, well, this website is going to be bland until the project gets done. So you got to be, I guess, for us at least, we've been a little bit more strategic in what content we post as things get done and completed, and as things get done and completed, making sure we photograph it. But I also say, in the interim, making sure that you're visible and eventually make sure your firm is visible, and that's I'm big on like being organic in that. So, don't show up places that you wouldn't usually show up at, right? So, hey, if there's a community meeting and it's something you're really interested in, or hey, if it's some outing that's going on, or hey, if it's a NOMA event that you want to show up to, like, hey, like, show up and like put on for your firm until you have the catalog like a Moody Nolan in order to put all of those projects on your website.
I think you really hit the nail on the head with the fact that, you know, running a firm is a lot of work. Like
Mm,
it's really a lot. Like you're not only doing the business side, you're also designing, you're also getting jobs, you're also marketing, you're also like it's extremely, for me anyway, when I
mm.
think about it, challenging and somewhat difficult. And you make it seem so easy.
Mhm. No, no, no.
I know it ain't. I know it ain't,
It
but
it's
it's
not.
just
It's not. It is not. It's not for the not for the faint of heart. I honestly, I think a lot of people like the idea of entrepreneurship, but I don't think a lot of people are cut out for entrepreneurship. I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of skin in the game. There's a lot of dollars invested, debt, long nights, early mornings. No sleep, a lot of stress. But ultimately, long term, you know, uh, you know, I really believe it'll be worth it. I think we're starting to see traction on our project types, whether it be the number of projects or the size of our project. So, I know I'm on the right path. When I got laid off in 2020, I couldn't see myself going back. I couldn't
mhm.
see myself going back to being strictly an employee. Like at that job, like I really dislike. I didn't like the job. It wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good fit. Like I would literally pull up in the morning and sit in the car. Like it was hard to get even out the car to go into the office. So I was like, hey, I gotta make this shake. So in that, when it came to doing culture, it's like let's do it full time. And I think, for a lot of us, when you do have that idea, I say initially lean on your own personal network. So, when I got back, people say, "Oh, Joseph's back. Joe moved back to town. I got this project for you." And I was like, okay, I introduced you to my boss. we'll see, if we can get you on the books. And they're like, I don't want to work with your boss. I want to work with you. And
Mhm.
like, I bring those projects to the office and they're like, I don't know if I want to work on this. So they were turning down the projects too. And I was like, all right, you know what, let me step my foot out of here and start trying on these projects. So church project was first. I want to say our second project was a cocktail lounge here. But once people started working, we started getting traction, started moving, and yeah, like things are really coming together now. Now it's not easy. I'm often, there before the employees get in there, and I don't even like saying employees. I'm there before the team members get there, and then when they leave, I'm still there. Go
Mhm.
work out, get some dinner, and then I'm coming right back to my desk. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but eventually it'll pay off, and I know that all of these long nights will eventually kind of scale back.
Let's talk about some of your projects. You have a exciting venture happening.
Okay.
Do you wanna let the audience know, or you want me to?
So we got a lot. Let's run through it. So for us, when we first started, I just mentioned first project was a church project. It was a cocktail bar. Then I want to say it was like a basement renovation for a friend. I want to say that. Like we worked on a lot. So like right now, our scale and scope is like really increasing on the boards right now. We got multiple residential renovations, ground up residential. We're working on some really cool like multi-family project here in Nashville, in the heart of the Black community. We're working on several churches, um, office interior build outs, office buildings. So we're actually working on a really large office building for the city of Nashville, for the Metro Water Department, which is exciting. And I think the one project that first got us a lot of visibility was working on a populous, um, on the Vanderbilt athletic facilities. So, working on athletic facilities for a school in the Southeastern Conference, working on a new $300 million like football stadium, practice facility, basketball practice facility as well. Like you know, that gave us, some looks. Like a lot of people were like, wait a minute, what? Like, how are y'all working on that? And for us, we wanted to make sure we push that in order to leverage, make sure people realize that we had the capacity, but also had the talent to work on these big projects. I think from there, that we were able to leverage that into pitching for the large Metro Water building, which I'm excited, once we start unveiling some of that. But now our big project is working on the new Tennessee Titans football stadium. So the new Nissan football stadium here in Nashville. It's the largest project not only in the city but in the state. It's a $2.1 billion project. Um, it's pretty cool in that I am from Nashville, so I am a Nashville kid that left and came back home and started a Nashville-based business, and I'm like a diehard Titans fan. So we go into these meetings, and I know it's about architecture. I know it's about design, construction, budgets, but like I'm excited every time we have a meeting in regards to this project. So we're, in the thick of things right now with that project. Our scope is pretty cool. You mentioned marketing. I was very intentional about, at the beginning where they let us decide, what pieces of the project do you want to work on? I was very intentional about what we're working on in the stadium. So I selected areas that I knew would be photograph well, would market well, and be high touch so that, when people come in the stadium, they would interact with the spaces that culture touched on the stadium. So, we're working on the new press box, the media broadcast room. So anytime you watch a game and you see the announcers, know, hey, culture worked on that. The ticketing office, whenever you come to a game, you go get your tickets. Hey, culture worked on that too. The media briefing room, but also we're working on what's known as the community room. So that's a the effort between us and other firms. But me being from Nashville, me being adamant about making sure an authentic Nashville story is told. I really wanted us to work on that community room. So it'll be a space that is set up for schools, classes, community-based events, organizations. Anybody that wants to have an event in this new $2.1 billion stadium, they'll be within that space. But yeah, we were very intentional about, crafting and carving out, okay, what spaces are we going to touch within that? And I think, for me, my big thing with growing culture was architecture could be very competitive. It's definitely a gatekeeping industry, and I think that especially for us, it could be tough to land those big projects. And I have been big on collaboration over competition. So we find other firms to partner with to figure out, hey, what do we bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? Hey, let's partner together and let's go after these projects and create a super team. That's been very, very fruitful for us. I think we've done it at this point 6 different times, and it's increased our not only our capacity but also like our prominence on projects. So I think now, especially the way Nashville's growing, there are so many different firms here that I feel like there's a new firm that pops up every day. But I think people are starting to notice us and know of us in this market.
You know the numbers? You know how many firms are there in
In that,
Tennessee? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how many firms are in Tennessee. I couldn't tell you on that. I know in the city of Nashville, Moody Nolan for black firms, Moody Nolan has a very large presence here. um, Under the leadership of Brian Tibbs. Brian has been a mentor for me for a long time. He actually interviewed me when I was in undergrad. A great guy that wants to see us all succeed. But in that, I think especially um, over the last since the pandemic, there have been quite a few black-owned firms that have started. So
Mm.
now I think we went from Moody Nolan probably a handful of sole practitioner firms. I want to say in the city now we probably have, in addition to those, probably like 5 newer black-owned firms within the city.
Oh,
So,
wow.
a lot of us are um, small but mighty. So I probably have a team of, anywhere between 1 to 7 or 9. So, in that, um, I think we're all trying to figure out ways to work together and scale up our businesses.
Yeah, right. Is there a it'd be great. I don't know. Is there a small black firm roundtable happening?
Like, you know what? There needs to be. There needs to be one of those. That was one thing I definitely picked up on in my time in New York and volunteering in Narcoba. I think they do a really good job of having um, content and programming for business owners.
Mm,
You know, you know, as fellow NOMA members, we both know like as soon as you join NOMA, they're gonna be on your head about getting licensed. Like you gotta get licensed. But like what do you do like after you get licensed, right?
right.
And I do think that those roundtables to talk about maybe the basic things about hey, this is really hard, but also like some of those like more practical things about hey, who's your accountant and what kind of insurance do I need? Like all of those things are needed. I think that Noma National has some um, programming centered around that. But since there are so few firms, I think like some of our local firms might need to have joint programming because, if we only got 5 and Atlanta has 10 and another city has 12, like, having a Zoom call where we could all meet, I think would be invaluable.
Hmm. I'll put that on my list.
You got it.
Scale wise, in the
Hmm.
next like 5 years, like is your goal to be a Nolan, different offices around across the country, and or you just want to be like local and stay in Nashville or even state of Tennessee? Like,
Okay. So I'll say we don't want to be a movie no. We want to be a culture, right? We're not trying to copy and replicate them and do what they're doing and doing how they're doing it. We're gonna do what we're doing and we're gonna do it authentically. From that though, yeah, we plan to continue to grow and scale, not just nationwide but internationally. For me, when it came to building culture, you know, sat down with HR and I was like, yo, like, let's put together a 10-year plan. So we got a plan for the next 6 months, 2 years, and 10 years so that everybody we bring on and every move we make has a level of intentionality and ties into the big picture 10 years from now. It's kind of like a Marvel movie, right? Like this all gonna pay off at the end game. Oh, with that, we're
The
pursuing.
end game, the end
Yes,
game.
it's the end game. It's the end game. So we're like, we're pursuing the end game. But yeah, we don't want to be moody and all. We want to be, the one and only culture. And like in that, like we're authentic and being culture, how we present ourselves and our story and our marketing and all the things. Like right now, we're pursuing. I think the furthest project right now that we're pursuing from us is in Los Angeles. So we're definitely spreading our wings right now at this time in the firm, but we're still Nashville based. So we want to make sure we continue to serve this market. But yeah, we definitely planning to grow. We're looking for opportunities not just for projects on our own, but opportunities to partner. So if there are firms that are looking at us saying, hey, we want to work with a firm like that, whether it be because of our capacity or our talent or our skills, like we will be willing to consider that.
Sweet. I had two more. I think you answered one of them, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. The
Yeah.
first one is mentorship. I know
Mhm.
you mentioned a couple of folks. Were they overall just mentors in the field, mentors like business mentors, or
Mhm.
just overall like wanna shout out or talk about that?
I think mentorship is important. I think mentorship can look different. I think, you know, we always look at the traditional form of mentorship where it's strictly about job and career and everything else, but sometimes it's about personal growth and like all the things. um, I also think like sometimes mentorship is admiring from afar. I never had the opportunity to have, excuse me, a conversation with Phil Freelon, but I mean, to me that's like the goat. Like I've always admired him and Freeline Group before they were acquired, and the work that they did, and wanted to you know um, you know be like them. To be honest, like I've always admired the Phil Freeline, you know. But in that, just admiring from afar, you know, David Ajay, having relationships with Ibrahim Greenwich at Bow Architecture, like, Eve is maybe a couple years older than me, but Eve started boat way before I did. Like he jumped off the boat a long time ago, right? So he's, even though we're in the same age range, for Eve, he has a lot of experience and exposure like I don't have because he's been in the entrepreneurial game a long time. So, we have touch bases, I might call up Eve and say, hey, what's going on, man? And like, some days we talk about everything and sometimes we talk about nothing and sometimes we do both all at the same time. But there's like a level of camaraderie there, Brian Tibbs in particular has been in Nashville for decades at this point. So he's seen a lot of the growth within the city. He's seen where the market has started and versus where it is now. Man, he's from the outside looking in, been very vital in the growth and development of Moody Nolan. So I would definitely advocate for him. Oh, one person I definitely want to bring up though. There's a woman here in Nashville by the name of Lynn Jolly. Now, Lynn is the first Black female architect, the first licensed Black female architect in the state of Tennessee. And Lynn was one of the founding members of the NOMA chapter, but Lynn has always been an advocate uh, for me as well as culture. So, I would say, at the very beginning, we were doing like a ton of, small projects, low margins, got to work fast, got to hurry up and get it done. But Lynn recommended us. She happened to be in a conversation and recommended us for working with Populous on the Vanderbilt athletics projects. And through that recommendation and a conversation, I think I know she did it just out of the genuine kindness of her heart, but that really did change the trajectory of culture. And I'm, very, very thankful for Lynn.
Wow. That's amazing. And that's a testament to like our culture, you know, like
Mhm.
we definitely look out for each other and like help each other out. And anytime you can call up and
Yep.
will
Yep.
help you
Yep.
out in a pinch. Like it's amazing
But it's
how
also like I didn't realize like she thought of us like that. Like the fact she was like, "Hey, you got to work with them," and it's like, man, I don't know, man. I'm very thankful for that recommendation, and I don't know if she realizes like how that like really like shook up things for us. It really did change the trajectory for a lot of things for us.
last question. I've been asking this question more and more lately, just the
Okay.
way that the world is right now and uncertainty is like around the corner. But how is your mental health? How are you doing? How you
How are
doing?
you doing? You know what? I appreciate that. And like I'll say with that, make sure you have friends that check in on you and ask you like, how are you doing? I got some good friends that I got one homeboy in particular, Sam, that will reach out and he'll ask how you doing. I'll start talking projects and business and everything else. He's like, all right, yeah, that was good. And I'll be like, how are you making? So for me, I would say at this point, there's a level of fatigue because I've been in the entrepreneurial game for a while now. So I'm tired, boss. I'm tired. But on top of that, I'll say I'm excited. I'm excited. You know, I really feel like I am walking in the dreams and blessings that I prayed for like 5 years ago. Like I'm
Wow.
seeing it all start coming to fruition right now. Not to say that we're going to stay here. Like we're going to continue to grow and work on even more bigger and prominent projects. But there's a level of being aware and like not taking it for granted. Like I'm not taking for granted any of the success that we've had as of recent. Like you know, I am really walking in the dreams and the blessings that I prayed for 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even in architecture school, 20 years ago. Like it's it's all coming together. I'm excited. There's this level of just, I don't know, just feeling like blessed, like where I'm at right now. We had a video shoot the other day because you mentioned marketing. We're about to do this really big rollout to let people know we're working on Titan Stadium. And in it, we were doing a video shoot, but I was watching the team members and like how excited they were. And like, I wasn't trying to be mushy, but I was just like, yo, I appreciate their level of buy-in and excitement for working for culture and working for a business I started. Like, I was like, thank y'all. And they were like, oh yeah, cool. And I was trying to make it awkward. Like, I was like, yo, thank you. Like, I appreciate how excited y'all are to be on the team. Like, this is dope. Like, so, I'm blessed, I'm full. There's a level of gratitude that I have for where we're at right now. It's all about what you focus on. And right now we're focusing on blessings.
Yay.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I love it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, sir. Thank you so much. I'm gonna end on that for coming on and just, every time I see you, it's always love. So
I appreciate you. Thanks, Mel. Honestly, it means a lot to have me on your platform. I'm still in that having imposter syndrome phase where I'm like, why would they want to talk to me? But I appreciate you giving me your platform to speak and speak about what we're doing down here in Nashville.
okay. All right. Stay on the line.
All right.
And thank you so much.
All right.